Good to see you, gentlemen.
Likewise.
Good to see you again.
Thank you for being here. We saw Richard the other day here at that incredible service. It was like a service, actually, but Thanksgiving Square sponsored a day of prayer, National Day of Prayer. And I didn't know this, and maybe you do, but National Day of Prayer actually started here in Dallas. And at the session that we were at, there was over 650 people that were there from all different faiths. And the way it felt for me personally, felt like music. Am I too quiet? How's that? Sorry. It literally felt like there was no people. It was just all song and music. There was a certain blend of all of our instruments together. So it was a really special, kind of an invitation to the kingdom of heaven. That was my thought. But I learned about Richard Miles on reading the Christian Science Monitor, and maybe you did too. There was 2 articles that were done by our Monitor staff, and they were impressive articles, to say the least. So,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I didn't think we were going to get you here. You're such a star.
No, I am humbled. I'm blessed. I'm humbled. I'm blessed. No star. I just like.
And you're good looking.
Well, I'll take that one right there. Thank you.
You remind me of Moses, the hair.
The gray. I knew it was the gray hair.
You remember the movie where Charlton Heston comes down from the mountain? Well, he goes up with dark hair and he comes back with white hair.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that was an amazing transformation.
That's how you noticed me after the dinner.
That's exactly how I recognized him.
Yeah,
There's Moses. So, well, angel teams are a very, very important piece to what we do in putting a 360-degree wrap around people. And I know that that's involved in your work. So I think we have a commonality here in what we do and what we want to do. And we're here to learn from you, both of you. And so let's just start off with, it's kind of an obvious. If you've read the Monitor articles about Richard, you know that he was falsely incarcerated here in the state of Texas for 15 years.
Yes, sir.
Could you tell us a little bit about what that had to be like? And I really would love to hear more about the transformation that had to occur, because you could be very, very bitter or angry guy right now.
Yes, sir.
So something happened.
Yeah, a lot happened pre, during, and post. How about that? But I have to acknowledge Mr. Bob. It's great when you can bump into somebody and bump into a great relationship. And so last year, around this same time, at the prayer breakfast, I literally bumped into Mr. Bob Woodard. And I feel like we've been knowing each other longer than a year. But yeah, so at the age, I'm born and raised in Dallas, Texas. Went to high school and elementary. My mom was a school teacher. My dad, a disabled veteran who eventually became an elder and passed as a bishop 6 months before I was released from prison. So I was actually ordained as a minister while I was incarcerated. At the age of 19, I graduated from high school. I was working at McDonald's, getting ready to go to TSTC in Waco to study plastics engineering. That was my space. And within the year that I was out, I was picked up. I was walking home. I was picked up for a murder and attempted murder that happened about 5 or 6 miles away from where I was at. Stayed in the county jail about 17 months. I gave the detective phone numbers of who I was with and everything. Ended up going to jury trial, lost the jury trial, and I was given a total of 60 years in the Texas Department of Corrections at the age of 20. Ideally, this was...
So you would have white hair when you got
Yeah, I think the minute they put the handcuffs on me, my hair was black, and the minute they put the handcuffs on, it just turned gray. They had to really see if they had the right person. But even with that, I was blessed to have a very spiritually grounded birth, within my family, but a solid foundation going into prison. And so to answer your question, it's logos and rhema, right? And this is the manifestation of my life. Logos is the written word. Rhema is the living word. A lot of times we gain knowledge through logos, but until you experience it, then it doesn't become rhema. Yeah. And so the story of Joseph, to me, was logos growing up. I read Joseph in the Bible, fell in love with the story. Wow, this is great, transformative. And now I'm living a Joseph situation. And so it's one thing to have faith, it's another thing to access faith. Yeah. A lot of us have faith, but when you're placed in a situation to where you have to use your faith, it costs. Because you're giving up any type of ability or any control to God. You're totally trusting in God. And so for my transformation, it was me having this internal experience to know I don't only have faith, I can access faith. And outside of the Innocence organization that took my case there in Princeton, New Jersey, Centurion is the Innocence organization. It's the first Innocence organization in this movement. They took my case in 2007.
Took them a while, didn't it?
It took them a while. I was blessed, and you got to understand that God will give you moments of hope in your transition. So the first person I met on Cofield was a guy named Ben Spencer. Well, Ben Spencer is another person that was innocent in prison. And so when I'm talking to Ben about my situation, Ben gives me the address to Centurion. And I wrote them in 1997. They took my case 10 years later and found out, first and foremost, Brady violation, which is the failure to disclose exculpatory evidence. It was a lot of evidence in the police files that was never turned over. And one particular piece of evidence was actually telling them who did the shooting, but it wasn't turned over. Outside of that, you had the witness that was coerced. You had faulty scientific evidence, which said I shot a gun and I hadn't shot a gun. All of this was overturned. I walked out of prison in 2009, but I was fully exonerated in 2012. So my case is the first non-DNA, no confession case in the state of Texas. It relies on prosecutorial misconduct, tainted identification, and faulty scientific evidence.
Why did it take so long?
So that's a great question. Prior to my case, nobody really thought that innocent people were in prison, number one. That's the first thing. We have to understand that we do have innocent people in prison. And so when I got out, prior to my case, DNA was kind of like the equivocal piece of truth. But you have innocent people in prison that don't have DNA in their case. And so if you have a murder charge, if you have a robbery or a drug charge, now you have to actually get on the ground, go talk to witnesses. It costs a lot more. And for the state of Texas in particular, they had to figure out how do you deal with a non-DNA case, knowing that my case can unlock literally the doors for people that's in prison with no DNA but are innocent.
Wow. So there might be some pushback from the state of Texas.
Oh, you know, I think we've encountered pushback. I think the state of Texas, while we are considered as one of the most generous states as it relates to wrongful imprisonment, mean there's legislation in place for a person that's been wrongfully incarcerated. You can be financially compensated. While the package is generous, you also got to realize the minute that they assessed or assigned a dollar amount to wrongful incarceration, now it's like, no. That means for every innocent person you get out, you got to financially compensate, and now you're talking about messing with a budget. So what are we going to do? We're going to figure out how do you release people that are innocently incarcerated but not actually declare them innocent. So that's when you get the constitutional violations, the vacating of sentences, and all of those types of things that just allow us to look good.
Yeah. We're talking about this whole conference is about moral transformation of character. So what happened to you? Where would you say, going into prison, you're where on the dial of the morality meter? And where did that change to some degree and then change and so on? How did that process work of moral transformation? Because I'm just thinking moral transformation isn't like a one and done kind of deal.
Yes, I agree. And if I look down at my notes, trust me, I'm looking down at my notes because they gave me some great questions, and I've just really been.
And I'm messing with your questions.
Oh, no, you're not. You're right on point.
Okay,
Trust me.
Okay.
Because when you think about moral transformation, morality is outward facing, right? And so for me, when I looked at our criminal legal system, and I call it a criminal legal system because oftentimes justice is void of the system. We have a great criminal legal process, and if all procedures are followed, justice is the outcome. When we say we have a criminal justice system, that means that we can close our eyes and expect justice to come out with no work. But we see that there are innocent people in prison. We see disparities of sentences. So we understand that justice isn't really in the system, but it's an outcome of everybody working together fluidly. But to answer your question, from a moral transparency, growing up, I never knew that somebody could be wrongfully incarcerated. I never knew that the system had gaps in it to whereas when the jurors come in, people are not saying, oh, he's guilty, because the Constitution states that we're innocent until proven guilty. But the average person that goes to Villador, they never say, well, he's innocent. You must prove to me that he's guilty. So my moral transformation was really understanding that my expectations of our legal system and our places of confinement had to be changed. It had to be changed. We had to understand that our criminal legal system does not always yield justice. But it doesn't mean that we don't have a good system. And we have to understand from a moral aspect, our prison system was created to incarcerate and not to rehabilitate. And we have expectations upon people coming home from prison, and we have expectations on a system that was never created to rehabilitate.
Yeah. What were you like as an inmate? What kind of person were you?
You know, Darrell and I was on a unit together. Darrell and I was on a unit together on Cofield, in the same dorm. I will say that Joseph really personified my life because I was given unmerited favor. I mean, I worked in the fields. You know, there's like 6 or 7 states that do not compensate individuals that are incarcerated. Texas is one of those states. So for the first 4 or 5 years, I worked in the field force. I learned that in order to get out of the field force, you have to appeal to the boss. And then once the boss gives you another job, you can work in the kitchen. So I eventually worked in the infirmary, worked in the mailroom, worked up front. I was not a part of any gangs or anything like that. I think I would be considered as a comedian because you
like to make people laugh.
Yeah, I think that's in my innate nature is to make people laugh. Yeah. So I think that for me, when you're going through things that you don't understand, comedy is oftentimes where we want to lay our head on. And so for me, God showed me favor. I got my associate's degree in prison, worked at many places that I feel was beneficial for me returning home.
So Embrace Fully would have approved you.
I would hope so.
And I'm saying that because what you're doing, and this is important to understand, is that when you were in prison, you weren't like lifting weights and kicking back watching TV. Maybe you did, but
I did, yeah, just a little bit.
A little bit. But you were building a resume.
Yes.
You were building a life.
Yes.
That you were going to, once the gate opened up, you were going to be doing something that was going to be given back. Is that correct?
Most definitely, and I believe that.
And that's who we're looking for.
And what I was doing in prison, I don't even think that what I was doing then, I was conscious of what it would lead to later on.
Oh.
I wasn't conscious of my transition or what I was doing because so much like the movie Shawshank Redemption, when Andy comes out the cell, he just follows what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
And so for me, because you don't have a rule book in prison, right? But you do have morals, you do have integrity. And so for me, those were the basic principles. And I try to, the scripture says what? We are in the world, but we're not of the world.
Yeah.
I was in prison, but prison wasn't in me.
Oh, that's a beautiful distinction. What's he like, really?
I tell you, because of him, I'm who I am.
And who is that?
Alphonso Hill. I'm somebody today.
How did he impact your life?
Well,
Because you work with Miles of Freedom.
yes, I do.
Okay.
Like Richard, I was incarcerated 15 years. I'm from Dallas, Texas also. I grew up in Oak Cliff. I went to South Oak Cliff High School, graduated in 1977. So I just told my age, right?
You're a kid.
So I came up in a single family home. There was no father. You know, I had a mother that did private duty work, and it was 6 of us. So I had to go to school to be somebody, so mama can stop doing what she was doing and help feed the other siblings. And I graduated. I went to nursing school at the Institute of Nursing Technology, became a licensed vocational nurse. And after that, you know, I started taking a lot of things on in my profession. I worked at Parkland Hospital. So I seen a lot of things, and, you know, a lot of things created on me. And I went to drugs. And I got conviction in 1995 on the Maniana Reds during the time that Michael Irvin was in, you know, doing his thing. And I went to prison. And while I was incarcerated, the whole family passed away on me.
Hmm.
And when I got out of prison, I had nowhere to go. I had $100 gate money, and I had a bus ticket to Dallas. As I was sharing with the chaplain back there, when I left, I can go to the grocery store and open the door. But when I came home, I didn't know I had to step on the mat for the door to open. Things had changed. There was nobody else around. I was homeless. I slept in a tent. I relieved myself in buckets. I went on job interviews. They told me that don't call them, they'll call me. You know, so I cried out to God, and gave God an ultimatum. I said, "Look, if you don't deliver me, I'm gonna deliver myself."
Hmm.
You know, me telling God what He's gonna do, right? You know, how you been there? And I heard about Miles of Freedom through an agency that employed older folks. And I was considered a senior citizen then. And I was passing by and I saw the sign, Miles of Freedom, bridging the gap from prison to freedom.
Hmm.
So I went in there and I talked with the case manager, the CEO, well, not the CEO, I'm sorry, Rich. The case manager, the director of case manager, and we had an interview, and I had a spiritual awakening while I was there.
What?
She told me, she invested in me. She shared with me that I'm not a mistake. I made mistakes.
Hmm.
And see, when I was growing up, I was never loved. My parents never told me that they loved me. I never heard that. So I didn't know what love. And the people that supposed to had protected me, they hurted me. They let me down. Being molested, being abused, growing up, and no one would listen to me. I was told that I could never cry. I can never share how I felt. So when I took all this, and when I got home and when I got out and all through this, going through what I was going through, nobody never listened. Nobody told me that they loved in me. Nobody told me that I was somebody.
Mm.
But at Miles of Freedom, when I got there, I was in an interview now. But this lady in this organization was there. And I opened up and shared things to them that I can share with you today that I never shared with nobody. See, I had more than just being homeless, no skills at my age, not employable. You know, I had mental issues too, because nobody never listened to me. And when they shared with me that I'm somebody, I'm not a mistake, I made some mistakes, that I don't have to let being in a prison as my past. It was just a lesson. It wasn't a life sentence. And today, I'm employed at Miles of Freedom. I have my own place today. I don't have my car yet, but I'm working on it. I have a bank account today. I'm 65 years old.
Mm.
For the first time in my life, I'm living a dream. I'm living what God intended for me to have, I think. I drive a truck. We have a truck that was Richard had got for me. I drive
I
a truck,
saw that truck. It's pretty cool looking.
Miles of Freedom. I work in the pantry in the very place that I did my dope. I was homeless at. Now I'm back in that community doing the things that was somebody did for me.
Mm.
I shared with the chaplain earlier. You're looking at a miracle
Mm.
because before Miles of Freedom, I was ready to go back to prison. I was ready because I felt like there was no hope out here. Everything is foreign. I didn't have to worry about nowhere to stay. I didn't have to worry about 3 meals. I didn't have to worry about somewhere to lay down. My clothing, all that was affordable to me in prison. So that was easy for me to just go back because everywhere I knocked, they shut the door on me. If I went to the back door, they nailed it up. I had an X on my back. I'm old. For Miles of Freedom, they told me they loved me.
And they meant it.
I got a future for them. I'm sorry. But if you only know all my story, these are tears of joy. And as I look out this audience and see these people, because everybody that has talked to me today told me they love me. And I'm seeing them. Thank you, Rich.
Beautiful story. You are loved.
I
Tell us about Miles of Freedom. I'm just on the edge of my seat now.
first and
Who
foremost,
are you? What are you doing?
first of all, I mean, over the past 12 years, we've worked with over 2,500 men and women returning home from prison.
Wow.
And I don't get a chance to meet everybody, and I don't hear everybody's story. And this is my first time really hearing Al's story. Miss Tavia and Destiny, our case managers, they really do that groundwork and to sit and first and foremost see a man that's vulnerable. Let's capture that. Vulnerability, we spoke of that earlier, is a space where we don't want to be in anymore. And especially men, you know, being vulnerable means that you are exposed. But for Miles of Freedom, we first and foremost try to create a community. You know, our culture within Miles of Freedom is a culture that's built around individuals that have been impacted by incarceration, that are passionate about assisting individuals, but we also understand that there are systemic issues that come with each person that we work with. And so over the past 12 years, we've grown to have a very in-depth case management service. Our services are Monday through Fridays. We're located at the Martin Luther King Jr. Center in South Dallas. Our case managers address individuals on an individual basis, whatever they need, whether it's state IDs, whether it's clothing. We have partners that offset the things that we don't do through collaboration. We have a food pantry distribution. We're in partnership with North Texas Food Bank. Since 2019, this is where Mr. Al works. We've distributed over 3 million pounds of food to individuals. Not only that's just been in prison, our food pantry is no income restriction, no zip code restriction. So it's anybody that's experiencing food insecurity can come to the pantry. And what I love about it is for people that we work with like Al, to where at one point in time nobody poured value into you, when you are now a solution for somebody else, you feel valuable.
Yeah.
And so during COVID, what happened was we were one of the first organizations that started the drive-through pantry. And you're talking about the manifestation of God in your life. That's where the Joseph story hit me again, because I was standing and I'm looking at the cars and they're lined up. I'm talking about you have Toyotas, you have Chevrolets, you have Mercedes, because COVID impacted everybody. And the fact that the people that was getting the food probably had never went by a prison, and the people that are serving had been in prison. And that place of empathy, that space of empathy, not sympathy, but empathy, the ability to be able to put on another person's shoes and to experience life from them was so transformative, but it was the manifestation of Joseph. And Miles of Freedom also, when we started in 2012, we started with the lawn service. And the lawn service was basically cleaning up lots in South Dallas. And we didn't envision this being a revenue generator for the organization. And so now our lawn service, we have commercial and residential lawn contracts. And this lawn service is threefold. It keeps us visible within the community. It provides earned revenue for our 501c3. And if individuals that are in case management that don't have a job, we can onboard you on the lawn service until our case managers are able to find livable wage employment for you. And so we've really are addressing reentry from a holistic standpoint.
Yeah. I'm assuming that when you started the organization that having case managers for each and every individual was probably not a part of it. That's something you went, individual needs individual attention. Tell us about the case managers.
Yes.
You're a case manager?
Yeah, so that's a great, and you must
You can
have been
both
there.
answer this.
You must have been there, David, because when we started, when I got out of prison and I got exonerated in 2012, so I had been out 2.5 years. So I knew the life of in prison, and then I walked the shoes of a person coming out of prison, not having anything. And so my exoneration brought about a financial compensation. But my financial compensation was connected to a very bad experience. And so when I seeded Miles of Freedom with a particular amount of money, and I first thought the only thing that people need returning home from prison was a job. So we started handing out jobs until one day we sent a gentleman to work in North Dallas, and the gentleman ended up quitting. And he came back into the office and he said, "Man, I just can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. And to Al's point, there's mental trauma. We don't associate traumatic or PTSD with people returning home from prison because we still refer to them as convicts. And so PTSD is not really something that we want to use, because now if I say that you have PTSD, then I have to somewhat empathize with you. I'm looking at your disability and not what you've done. But what that showed me was the case management piece. It has to be more than just giving a person a job or creating a culture of community. We have to have people that are able to sit down and talk with them, right? Because in prison, you don't have psychiatrists. And so you may have a person that actually did something wrong and they never have a real vow to release whatever sent them to prison. And so if you don't have that in preparation when they come out, the level of recidivism is higher because now they're coming out and they haven't addressed what sent them in. And so case managers really came later on in about 2015, so 3 years after we started. Our first case manager was Ms. Tavia Merle, and she runs the Reentry Program, and she's done an extraordinary job with building that case management team up with some awesome individuals. So really big shouts out to Ms. Tavia.
Just listening to you talk about case management, I'm thinking angel teams need to include a case manager. I mean, that sounds like the centerpiece of our work, really, because we have people that sort of we lose them somewhat in the orbit.
Yes.
If you don't have that direct contact with somebody and it's not consistent, they tend to feel that and they tend to drift off. And
Yeah.
we've got a few people, we may get a call a year later saying, hey, I need help. It's like, well, they didn't need to go through that. Maybe we could have done a better job.
And I think that as organizations grow in this space, you do understand that case management is important because, once again, that case manager, to Al's point, should always present themselves as being passionate or compassion. Now, what I will say, a lot of times, case managers begin to judge. So the minute you begin to judge the person, then you're in the wrong seat.
Yeah.
Case managers are social service workers. The minute you come in and I judge you, then I need to either go to law school and become a judge. I need to get out of that profession because I'm not effective as a case manager. Now I'm judging you, right? It's my space to be of service to you. So I think the service part is important. And I think also for showing good work. You don't hear a lot of good coming out of prison, because we're not capturing that data and we're not showing the world what's good coming out of prison. And so case management captures that data, that 30, that 60, that 90, that 120 success rate that's then turned in, and it bolsters that organization. So it's important.
Oh, thank you for that. I want to ask you, what does a case manager do? Do you have a checklist, or what's it look like?
Well, Ms. Tavia, the head case manager, she makes sure that I'm on point. If I'm not at work on time, if I'm having problems, it's a daily thing with her. You know, she meet with us every day before shift start, sometime during the shift. How you feeling? Do you need anything? How can I help in this area?
So the case manager's got a case manager.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tavia, even Mr. Miles, he's there on a lot of times, especially on Tuesday when doing our distribution. He's there down there breaking down boxes, helping us stack canned goods. He's on hand. And they let us know that they're not asking us to do anything that they won't do. They lead by example. And so, and therefore, with that said, that makes you want to be productive. Now, here it is. He's a millionaire, we say.
Not.
We think,
Not.
and in his thoughts and mind and his creativity, because he helped us in us. It's like I like I say, I can't really explain it. I'm not articulate like he is, but I'm just saying that, it's just so much love there, so much care and concern. They care about you. And that's hard when you go on a job because some jobs don't eat and they speak of loving God. They want to pray. It's hard to go on a job now and you talk about God. A lot of jobs don't want you doing that. Your religion is your religion. Don't impact anybody else. But we pray together. We talk about God. It don't matter who your God is, but there's a higher power. And these case managers, they do this on a daily basis. Even on the weekends, the holidays. How you doing? How your weekend going? Okay, I'm fine. Thank you. Get you some rest. But no, they're real great.
Gabriel, what's up?
Let's go to some questions.
We're opening the floor to questions. Make them short.
How can we get,
Here you go. No, it's good.
how can we get miles of freedom in other states?
That's a great question. I think somebody was praying earlier or speaking earlier. We're in the middle of our 3-year strategic plan right now. This is our 2nd year. Hooray, hooray. And right now what we're doing is going deeper before we want to go broader. Right? It's really important for Miles of Freedom to really understand Dallas and understand what we need to do to make Dallas a better place, because different states operate their prisons differently. And so reentry looks totally different in California or Colorado, right? And so I think right now it's us understanding what we're doing, making these great connections, and then really having these conversations about what does that look like.
Awesome. I love that depth before breadth. We have a lot of breadth and some depth, and so it's a good combination. All right, we'll go to James, and then if anybody on Zoom has a question, raise your hand.
Thank you both so much. I'm in Connecticut, and about 10 years ago, I had a woman in one of my Bible studies who, upon release, started something called Ladies of Hope Ministry, and she's doing a very similar thing. My question is, how can we get all these little groups doing things? I was talking about this earlier with somebody. How can we get all these, is there kind of and you don't even probably know about all these other people that are doing things maybe much closer to where, any of us might be. How can we get you all connected? Is there a way to, build something together, be familiar with everything? Because I'd love to connect you with her, and she's helping just women, whatever. It's just, I think it's important for us to start knowing all the players, because there's more of us out there than any of us realize.
Can I answer that? We're starting. This is what this is all about, really. Notice that we started off today talking about this being a sequence. Right now, what they have is silos all over the place. We don't have a system. The design of this workshop or the design of this conference is really secret idea here, is how do we bring these guys into our little fold, and how can they bring us into their fold, so that we're working as a system and not as a bunch of little individual silos all over the place? Because they have resources, we have resources, Sister has resources. This is something I think we could put tracks under,
The other thing I'll add to that, James, is the way we, David and I, have made connections to groups like this is literally by looking and then saying hi and then saying, can we talk with you? So if you have somebody right now and you're like, I would love to put you in touch with them, how do we do that? I would say put them in touch with each other. Literally, just do that, because every single one of these organizations started because somebody had heart and saw a need and started to act to try to meet that need. And we are no different, right? So the connected part of it, the useful thing about that is, do we know who to call or how to find somebody to help if it's outside of our immediate scope? So there are groups like the Anti-Recidivism Coalition in California. They're a coalition of folks. I mean, we are sort of building a network and a coalition of folks. We interviewed, who was it who had the network website? Like we recently interviewed somebody that is building a website that just has a ton of resources. Yeah, the In and Out Network, I think, or something. Inside Out Network. So there are a lot of things like that out there. The important thing I would just like to impress upon everybody here and on Zoom is just because somebody else is doing some of this work, that doesn't mean you shouldn't also just be yourself actually personally doing this too. We have gotten so many great ideas for people to interview by somebody who was like, I saw this article, I watched this video, that would make a great interview. Well, when we interview somebody, we get to know them. They get to know us a little bit. And I'll put in a plug for our monthly interview series. If any of you don't know about it, first Thursday of the month, it's at 6 p.m. Pacific. And David is usually the one who does the interviewing. And it's just a chance, just like we are right now on stage, getting to know somebody and what they do and learning from it. So do we have any questions from Zoom? It looks like we have a couple.
Yeah, this is Judith from Reno, Nevada. Okay.
Yep, you're on.
Yeah, my question is for Richard. What was the name of the organization that helped you negotiate or work with you to get your release from prison? You've mentioned it.
Centurion, CENTURION. They are in Princeton, New Jersey. Can I think of the address? I can't think of the address right now, but that's the name of the organization. James McCluskey is the founder, and he's actually coming out with a book with John Grisham this year. So be on the lookout for it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. And we have a question in the room, and then we'll go back to Zoom.
Have you heard or seen the movie Just Mercy?
Yes, I have seen the movie, and actually they did a kind of like a breakdown on it, so I did a panel discussion on that movie. Great movie. So Just Mercy was, if you've ever wanted to read a story about Richard Miles, it would be kind of parallel to the story of Just Mercy with Brian Stevenson, which was the actual writer. Jamie Foxx played the actual person that was incarcerated, and he was wrongfully incarcerated. So it's a great movie and true story. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Awesome.
ma'am.
All right, we have a Zoom question from David Van Winkle.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Hey, I'm also from Reno, Nevada. Go to the same church as Judith goes to, as a matter of fact. I want to thank you, gentlemen, very much, the both of you, for your testimony. And I would like to speak, since the theme is on a personal transformation. We don't have to be incarcerated to experience that. I think everyone has to experience that, or does experience sometime in their life. I know I have, and I wanted to speak to what you brought up about vulnerability. And light went off when I heard that. My experience is that vulnerability, a time of vulnerability, personal vulnerability, is a threshold moment for transformation. And often I'm a visiting chaplain, so often I am in a place to respond to that vulnerability when it comes to the chapel. Very quickly, I'm working with a gentleman now that has been incarcerated for 42 years, 22 of that in solitary confinement. He's an Odinist leader, associated with white supremacy in many ways. And he's experiencing a vulnerability now in his life when he's willing to give all of that up and, kind of go to that place that you, sir, were talking about when you were able to express your feelings about your past and going all the way back to your boyhood. That's a vulnerability in a positive way, right? That's a threshold moment. And it's important for chaplains then to meet that honestly in our dialogue with them to help them kind of navigate through that threshold moment. That's what I wanted to say. And anything you want to say to that?
Yeah, I will. I can also encourage when you're working with people that whether they're in physical places of incarceration or mental or relationships, that the scripture says what? That God requires a broken and a contrite heart and spirit. So in our vulnerability, we're broken, right? And so I think that we have to embrace our spaces of brokenness, because it's in those spaces where God knows when he pours into you, you're not going to be able to contain what he's pouring into you. So that's why vulnerability is a space of not only, as you were speaking of, a threshold, it's also a space where we have to really hold on and understand, number one, why am I feeling vulnerable? It's not just accepting this thing, but why am I feeling vulnerable? And the other piece will be, before they acknowledge why they're feeling vulnerable, it's important to identify the positive strengths within the people. Because if you don't identify their positive strengths, then that space of vulnerability could be a whirlwind cycle in a negative direction. So really encouraging them, hey, you got it in you. It's nothing wrong with being broken, and there's a reason that you are broken.
We have time for one more question, or
Richard, what did you learn about forgiveness that surprised you? Because it's what's needed, right, Alphonso? I know forgiving your family, right? Forgiving the way what you grew up. Maybe both of you want to answer that, but what did you learn about forgiveness that surprised you?
So my journey is interesting. I mean, the biggest thing about forgiveness is it doesn't look the way that we want it to look. It doesn't. In prison, I thought that when I walked out, Dallas was going to embrace me with open arms. We are sorry. We wronged you. And it wasn't. It was, you made a mistake. You're guilty. And so forgiveness for me wasn't for the other person. It was for me. I forgive, which means I relinquish any thoughts of retribution towards you for something that you've done to me. Anything that I wanted to do, it's released because of what's been done to me. And so I think understanding that forgiveness will never look the way that we want it to look. But we have to understand that we have to look within ourselves first and forgive ourselves, even when we feel like we're justified. He forgave his brothers, right? And the last thing I'll say is understanding that when God created the world, he said it is good, not perfect. And we walk around like we're perfect. We're not. We need to understand I'm good and I aspire for perfection, which will be when I'm reconnected. But right now, I'm good.
awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Let's big round of applause. Big round of applause. Big round of applause. You good?
You know he did.
All right, one more.
I just want to say, I just want to thank you guys for having me here today, sharing my experience, strength, and hope. And I hope that something was said that will make you look at the direction that we're going with and how much the world need love. And I want to thank Richard Miles and Miles of Freedom for giving me, a wreck like me, an opportunity to be a productive citizen of society today. Because no matter how far I went down the scale today, then I know my experience can help and benefit others. And I thank all of you.
Awesome. Thank you.